Hey, podcast listening people. Welcome to another episode of B2B Mentors. And I have a real treat for you today. A guest celebrity, I would say, CEO of Recruiter.com. Do me a tiny favor before I pull Evan up here. Make sure you share this. Make sure you're subscribed on all your favorite podcast apps where you can find us. And please share this, if not only for you, but for somebody else. I guarantee there's someone else in your network who'll get great value out of these discussions. And we're bringing it to you for free, expert mentors. So with that, the man, the myth, the legend, Evan Sohn with Recruiter.com, chairman and CEO of Recruiter.com, an on-demand recruiting platform that combines AI, video job matching technology with the world's largest network of small and independent recruiters. Sohn is frequent contributor to CNBC, Yahoo Finance, and demonstrates expertise in a diverse set of industries: Wi-Fi, instant messaging, data security, CRM, and much more. So welcome, my friend. Good to see you in the flesh.
Thanks, man. Just because I'm old.
Just because you're old. Just because you're old. What? Because you're old.
No, that's why I have all those different experiences. It's because I'm old.
You're not old. You're seasoned. It's like a spice, right?
Thanks.
So I was actually curious about something I saw on your LinkedIn profile that, by the way, what is a, I'm familiar with advisors. What is a special advisor compared to like a normal advisor? Or did they bring you in and they're like, we want you to be an advisor. And you're like, yes,
but I'm special.
Only
if you consider me special. That's funny. No idea. They asked me to get some, asked me to help out. And, I'll help out with whatever's needed. So there you go.
How did you end up kind of building the relationship with the team there, emerging into Recruiter.com?
Yeah, I was brought in by one of the original investors to help out, to really see what we can do with this incredible brand, URL, network, et cetera. So it's been a lot of fun. My first foray into the HR tech space, but challenging nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely sure of that. And I mean, congrats on what you've accomplished so far. And speaking of, great branding and the company and everything, one thing that's interesting, but which, by the way, everyone has like tons of interviews out there, lots of podcasts, he's on TV. I want to dive into like the business mindset and kind of the mentality and in the business orientation of Evan, so you can really learn what it is to think like a CEO at a high level. And one thing, obviously, all the podcast shows you've done, all the branding, you've done a lot of legwork at building your personal brand. And many CEOs in your position, publicly traded companies, are often behind the scenes, or they'll do the very large scale media. What is the mindset behind that? Like, what's driven you to build and push your personal brand so much? And what have you seen as the impact for Recruiter?
The reality is that I never push my own brand. I always push the brand I'm with, right? So my focus is not me. My focus is, the company itself. So you'll see behind me, even in my background, right? I got my RCRT wood thing I had made. I've got a Recruit.com stuff everywhere. Usually I'm wearing a fleece, a t-shirt, all about Recruit.com. To me, I'm never about me. I'm always about the company I'm involved with. I become, hyper focused on the business itself. Usually I don't look out for myself as well as I should, because I'm always looking out more really for the company itself. And that's, I learned a lot years ago. My first company, I worked with a sales guy from a partner of ours. They ended up buying the company. And I remember he worked at one company and he sold his CRM system to a pharmaceutical company. Then he went to a competitor and sold the competitor's product to that company, to that same first client. And I said to him, I don't understand, 2 weeks ago, you were saying this other company was great and this one wasn't. And now you're saying this one's great and the other one isn't. And he goes, it's not about me. It's always about the company I'm with. And what a great lesson. What a really great lesson to learn there. We're all in sales, but we don't represent ourselves. We represent the product that we're with.
Right. But I mean, your face, like your face is the voice of the brand. You're an extension of the brand, right?
Yeah, no,
And
true. But, at the same time, I will regularly tell the team, hey, give me the sound bites. What do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to say? Is there a message you want me to get across? And, part of what I'm actually pretty good at is synthesizing information and delivering that information to an audience. I remember going on CNBC once a couple of years ago for the foundation I'm involved with. And we had a sponsor who was like paying us extra money to mention their name on CNBC, right? For a sponsor for this one thing that we were doing. And I'm sitting there going, oh boy, it was fast money. I'm in the studio. There's a whole conversation going back and forth. And all I'm thinking about the whole time is, how do I get the microphone back so I could say this company's name? Because it's worth, it's worth like a good amount of money to the foundation, to the charity. And really, like, to me,
and did you slip it in? Were you able to sneak it in? Yeah, attaboy.
And again,
great sales guy to the bone.
But it's really not thinking about me. Like, is that the smartest thing for me to do? Probably not, but it's not about me. It's about the company I'm representing, the company I'm involved with.
What do you, at the level you're at now, what do you enjoy most about the day-to-day operation? Is it doing the media and speaking? And obviously the Sohn Foundation we should absolutely talk about that at some point in time. But what is it that you really passionately enjoy? I'm sure there's things you do every day that you hate, things you do that you love. What's the balance there?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I really love solving problems. If you had to say, do I prefer solving them or executing on the problem? I probably prefer these days solving the problems. One of my skills and is being able to set a play and run a ball down a field. So really understanding, okay, what's next, and just getting hyper focused on what's next. What excites me every day is figuring out what's next and moving the ball down to what's next. And I think, if we're going to talk about mentorship, the mistakes made are when you jump a step, you went too quickly. I assumed something that no one else did. And I learned that lesson years ago. I was with a company that had acquired mine, and we were doing this transaction with another big company. And for me, I sat down with all the decision makers at the other company on over the weekend, and we got, on paper, got the deal done. But, and I brought it to my boss. It was like the global head of something or another. I said, look, we're done. He goes, no, you got the idea. Now you have to go sell it internally. And it took me 6 months to actually go sell it internally, all the different divisions. And you really learn something there. It's not just about drawing a circle, 2 circles on a line saying, see, we connected the dots. It's about getting other people along on your journey. Success should not be measured just for the success you create for yourself, but for the success you create for others around you.
I love that. I'm sorry, it's just something I've kind of realized so much more as the career evolved, is these certain pursuits that I've had in my mind. This is what I'm going to accomplish. I'm like, wow, the real task is the most successful people in the world that you look at. The most successful CEOs are successful because they do what you said, make others successful. I think it's such a great
look,
point.
I think the greatest compliment you can give a CEO and the greatest compliment anyone can give to me personally is to say, you have incredible children. Oh, your kids are fantastic. I've got 3 kids. Your kids are amazing. Your kids are amazing. They're amazing. It's like the greatest compliment.
Evan, your kids are amazing. They're incredible. And your team, they're amazing.
For a CEO, go up to a CEO and say, by the way, I just want to tell you, I met your team. Your team is amazing. The team that I've met is fantastic. Every person here has just been amazing. That's a much better compliment to a CEO than I really like your product. Or, I saw you had a podcast the other day. You were so, you're so meaningful in your podcast, whatever that is. It's far better to say, look at what you've created, the team that you've actually built.
I've heard you mention these series of rules that you live by. What are those? Break those down for us.
Very funny. I just spoke to my dear friend Tony out in Silicon Valley. We started calling them Tony's rules because he had a few of them, but they've evolved over the years.
Tony's rules sounds like a mafia situation.
That's right. Tony
I'm not so sure about
the most talented salespeople I've ever met, business development people. But, he had this golden rule. and we'll use one rule in his honor, and it's never do anything you're not being measured against. So, and there's so many, and that actually cascades into so many different layers. And let's focus on this for as long as possible. It starts with only focus on the things you're being measured against. So let's tear it apart. What am I being measured on? What are my metrics? What are the key things that I wake up and go, am I getting that done or not? If you don't have it, go figure it out. And I regularly tell people, get a number. When you come from sales, you know what your number is. Your number is quota. Like, it's a very purity. How many opportunities, how many leads, how many opportunities, what's closing, what's in legal, what's my number, how am I doing? It's a very clear, and by the way, my advice to everyone is be a salesperson for some period of time, because that purity of sales, right? There's none of this, well, we came close. Either you hit your number, you didn't hit your number. What are you doing to move the number? And every day makes an impact. There's something so pure about that. The other is, what are you doing every day that you're measuring on? And are you allowing yourself to be distracted by the things that you're not being measured against? And part of that is really inertia. We love human nature. We love getting things done, right? We just love to get things done. So if I'm doing the things that I'm not being measured against, I still get that short-term sense that I'm getting something done, but I'm not moving the number across. And you wake up a year later and you're like, well, did you get your key metric done? No, but look at all these nice distractions I had, and I got that done. I got that done. I got that done. I got all these nice things done, but you're not being measured against any of them. And I'm really, really focused, this week on like discipline. And what was it? There are two pains that you have to address in life: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Right? Those are your two choices. You're either discipline or regret. And it's not easy. I lost like 50 pounds, right? So I regretted getting.
Attaboy.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, the key is you gain 50 pounds, right? The key to losing 50 pounds is you gain 40, and then you lose 50. But there's a great example. Either you have the discipline to work out every day, eat right, intermittent fast, don't eat carbs, whatever you're doing, or you wake up, 5 years later and you're 50 pounds heavier than you really should be. So it's one or the other. And I think business is the same thing. You got to have the discipline to say, gee, am I being measured against that or not? I will tell you, the other thing that it really cascades down is if your manager is saying to you, hey, do X and Y, and you have a KPI on A, B, and C, you should say to them, no problem, right? Not that I don't have time, right? Everyone has time, or actually forget that. Everyone has priorities. So the answer should be, hey, Connor, you asked me to do A, B, and C, and now you're asking me to do X and Y. I have no problem doing X and Y, but it's going to come at the expense of A, B, and C. So how do you want me to prioritize those things? And it's really this sort of discipline to say, I am only focused on the things that I am being measured against. That's it. That's what I'm being focused on.
What's happening?
Golden rule. Only do the things you're being measured against.
Only do so at this stage right now, like, what are you measuring yourself against? And one, your personal career life, and also obviously recruiter.com.
Yeah, it's a good question. I measure, look, we're a public company, so I have to measure it on the value I'm delivering for shareholders, the short-term value, the long-term plan. I have those are the primary stakeholders, the team itself, making sure that everyone else is, doing what they're doing, and ensuring that those things are really being, moving down the path or not. It's certainly not without its own challenges in a crazy market that we're in now. But that's kind of how I think about it. Think about those sorts of things. Are we moving in the right direction? What are the other challenges we need to have? Part of the challenge, Connor, is that we are a startup. Right. We're a 2-year-old startup, 3-year-old startup, so we still have all the challenges of a startup at the same time. So it's quite a fascinating journey. I'm going to write about it one day. So
should.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm going to write about is going to be, and I'll probably hopefully get other people to do it, like the 25 biggest regrets. Like the 25 mistakes made, and like absolute pure transparency on the mistakes. Because what you really want to do is not make the same mistake someone else did, right? Like
Yeah.
victory is easy. Oh, this guy was successful. Yeah, but there were so many things that went on to your success. You and I could do the exact same thing, but because you did it in January and I did it in November, you're successful and I'm not. So what am I going to learn from you when you tell me about how successful you were if it was a matter of timing? I'd be more interested to know from me, hey, I did all these things and failed because it was November and the timing was wrong. So I failed in November. Connor succeeded in January. I'm much more interested to know why someone fails than why they succeed.
Because you can we learn so much more from failures,
That's right.
right?
Learn so much more from failures, right?
Right. The difference maybe like, do you feel like people who are continuously, they're just not reaching that level of personal achievement, career achievement, is they're making those mistakes and then they're not learning or they're repeating. It's one thing to make mistakes, which everyone, every super successful person from my 9-figure coach to, multimillionaires, billionaires I met are like, my failures are the smartest thing I've ever done. But the dumbest thing, we're repeating those failures a second time.
Yeah. So look, I'm a big reader, all the self-help, motivational business, all that other stuff. I'm a Peter Drucker fan and, all those other things, other, famous quotes, aim fire, make mistakes, just make them quickly, all those other things associated with it. But like in books like The $1 Trillion Coach, these are all good things that were used. The hardest things about the hardest things, like these are all great books about, successful people on their journey and the successes that they have, because that's typically how we want to remember these folks by their successes. But you read a book like Getting to Plan B, and that's actually an interesting book. It talks about all the pivots that had to happen, in order, PayPal was Plan E, so you sort of learn these things. We all think PayPal was like, oh my God, amazing. They woke up one day and made PayPal. Their first product was for Palm Pilots to move data, to move money back and forth with Palm Pilots. Like, and so you learn from the mistakes. I just would love to see like a book really like titled like the 25 biggest mistakes made, right? So getting people to actually, here's what happened, here's what I did, and here's why I was wrong. And no sugarcoating, it was really good in the end because in November I made a mistake, but by the end of November, everything worked out. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, I want to hear like, here is actually the really serious, think of it from a stock perspective. I chose the wrong stock. Not it was a good deal in the end. I chose the wrong stock.
I think that's such a good point. Like in the world I'm Googling, I wonder if there's like, a book along those lines, because in a world we live in now where it's very much like everything's great. We got, fancy, shiny stuff on social media. Everyone's a success, right? But you and I are very similar in that way. And like, I'd rather see the ugly truth in the beginning to figure out how to get to the great upside. One thing, what are some of those top three, that you've really hit?
You got to wait for the book.
I got to wait for the book. Get a little tease, just a tease of one of the biggest mistakes learning lessons.
Trying to do too much. Okay. That's what I would say. I think that when you are in a search for product market fit, get the fit right, and optimize for the fit rather than the growth, right? In other words, if I could, and again, I'd rather spend more time talking about, or writing this down than anything else. But if you had 3 different, you go to a website and the company's doing 87,000 different things, which means that they're probably doing nothing really good. So, but they're trying to make sure that they're growing and people are buying that product. People are buying that product. They're not buying those other products, and you always hear on Shark Tank, like Barbara Corcoran say like, okay, what are your 3 top SKUs? Just sell your 3 top SKUs, forget all the rest. And like, it's such a great lesson. So I think that lack of focus, on just find the things that are actually working and get rid of the things that aren't working faster. Yeah. We have this ego, myself included, in like, okay, I'm trying that. It looks good. It smells nice. People seem to like it. My friend likes it. I don't want to get rid of it so quickly. Is that really, should that really be part of the, of the recipe? Right. So that would probably be the one there, but I'm probably breaking my own rules. That's probably more than anything else, doing
we
the things
kind of
Apple
talk
never
about
did.
the things we know we ourselves need
Yeah.
to like be doing. Like, of course, as you, I mean, you're entrepreneurial, entrepreneurial is like that, like shiny object syndrome is like the death of, more businesses, and like not even getting enough customers, getting too much, all that kind of stuff is like shiny object, especially nowadays. You think that's just like
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
biggest
I had a
downfalls of
great
people.
CEO who said, the hardest thing about a growth company is to know the difference between a temptation and an opportunity, right? A temptation is gonna, an opportunity will thrill you, and a temptation will, the opposite, right? Will destroy you. You get around, and that's the shiny object syndrome, right? It's just temptations, all about temptations. And again, it's okay to experiment and okay to try things. You just got to know when to hold them, when to fold them.
Yeah.
Kenny
Good point.
Rogers, by the way. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Good point. So I see you obviously have a lot of books back there. What's one, you keep going back to? Like what's one thing you're really studying, right now, or continuously study over the years in terms of a book?
I'll go back to the some of the Ray Dalio stuff. I really like the culture stuff. Chapters 1 and 2 are actually really good. 3 is not really my cup of tea for 3. Let's see. I like his books. This book is written by, this is like really good. There's some really, really good stuff here.
Principles is pretty awesome. I've read
Principles
that one.
is good. $1 Trillion Coach is really good. I really like
Yeah,
that.
I wrote that down.
That's actually really.
Who's that by? Who's the author of that?
It's a trio of guys. Schmidt, it's the Eric Schmidt from Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Roseberg, and Alan Eagle. It's all about Bill Campbell, who is this coach out in Silicon Valley, just an amazing, amazing individual. Football coach turned tech guy who ended up like coaching like everybody in Silicon Valley, like a who's who in Silicon Valley. So just really had his head all together. Really, really good. I'll always do like another sales book, sales coaching.
Yeah.
I've done like the Navy SEAL guys, all that other stuff. One of our board members, Steve Pemberton, wrote a book called The Lighthouse Effect. Very cool book about, helping different people and their ability to motivate and help and inspire other people. So I think there are always, those sorts of books. And I mentioned before, The Hardest Thing About the Hardest Thing. I always like that book.
Well, I mean, once yours comes out, that'll be my number one read. But if you haven't read this yet, have you gone into Bob Iger's book at all yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, that one's great. Yeah, definitely recommend checking that out. What's one thing in your just everything that's going on? So much shifts in the market. The company's constantly evolving, I imagine. What's one major thing you've changed your mind about in the last 6 months?
One thing I've changed my mind about regarding what? Just anything?
Anything, business?
Yeah, I think the world's changed since August 15th in a very, very big way. I think that in the last 6 months, the whole world economy has gone from growth to profit, and the shift to it's not grow at any expense. It's, how do we now, and everything is done in these like massive changes. There was the, huge pullback in the pandemic. There was the huge surge post-pandemic. And now here's this recession and world war and all these other things. It's like these massive shifts. And I would say that's really what's changed. Growth at any cost is certainly no longer a mandate for most companies.
What do you think was driving that?
What the change is?
Growth at no cost versus like
I would say VCs. I would say the venture community.
Tightening. Is that a tightening of the?
Yeah, it's definitely a
VC
tightening.
capital market?
If interest rates were 0 or next to 0, and it was a land grab, and VCs are out there to grow people as fast as possible, and there's no sort of like discipline on the month to month basis. I'll tell you something interesting. I was doing a little research. Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple all went public, generating less than $50 million in revenue. Think about that. They've all went public, not as billion-dollar companies or as multi-billion-dollar. They were each doing around really something crazy like that. Really low number. I think Microsoft was like $30 million market cap when it first got started on NASDAQ. Pretty crazy.
It is insane.
And so if you think about, well, who made money on Microsoft, on Amazon, and on, let's say, on Apple, right? Who actually made the most money? So you'd say in Microsoft, it's Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, right? And then the public, right? All the people that invested along the way made a ton of money, right? And you've seen those graphs. Oh, if you invested $1,000 in Microsoft back then, it'd be worth whatever it is.
You'd be a cajillionaire.
And you look at Amazon, and it's Jeff Bezos and his wife, of course, ex-wife, and then it's all the people who invested in Amazon along the way.
Right.
And you'd say the same thing with Apple, right? It was Steve Jobs and Wozniak and all the other people investing along the way. Well, who made money on Airbnb? Did you make money on Airbnb? No, I lost money. I bought shares at the IPO. So who made money on Airbnb? Now, the founders are rich, but they're not Steve Jobs rich, right? So who made money on Airbnb? Not the public.
Property.
It was the venture capital companies.
Oh, really?
Right. Who made money on Uber? Did you make money on Uber?
No,
the investors made money on Uber. And the Travis, the guy who founded it, did very, very well, very wealthy, right? Not Bill Gates wealthy, right? Not Bill Gates wealthy, but he made a lot of money, but the public didn't make its money. The real money was made by the venture community. Why? Because they realized, I believe, in the 70s and 80s, hey, look, you know what? Let's actually tell these companies, don't worry about the public market. We'll give you all the money you need. We'll ramp you. We'll grow you as fast as possible. We'll give you don't worry about SEC filings and know your customer and discipline and all the other things. You grow as fast as possible. And then we will reap the benefits from a liquidity event.
Right.
So I think it's really fascinating. By the way, Sarbanes-Oxley, which is like the grounds, the regulatory requirements to be a public company, was passed, I think, 20 years ago. And it was the most passed bill ever. I think 2 people voted against it. That was it. 2 people.
What was the name of the bill again?
The Sarbanes-Oxley requirements. Sarbanes-Oxley is like requirements to be a public company. So what's interesting is that like they made it complicated to be a public company. Why? So we have crowdfunding. Look at what's going on today. We have crowdfunding. We have all these things, which is really about being a public company. So we've made it complicated to be a public company. And I actually think it was done by the venture community to ensure that they're the ones that get to cherry pick the right investments. They get to grow the companies and reap the benefits. Now there's risk, right? They're investing in 20 companies to make 2 of them really, really successful, right? So they're taking the risk along the way there. But along the journey, they've kept the public out of it. It's kind of fascinating.
So how do we change? Is it worth? Does it need to be changed, or is it even valuable to change?
I think that you asked about the growth. So the PE firms. If you saw the WeWork documentary, the WeWork movie, we crushed.
And the Uber, what was the name of the Uber one again?
I forget, but we crushed. We crashed. It was grow, right? Privately held company, venture back, grow as fast as possible. And when you're in a public environment, your month now, again, your month to month matters, your quarter to quarter matters, all these things. But there's a very nice discipline there about it. There's a very nice discipline about, hey, here's how we're doing as a company. Here are the choices that we're making. So it's not without its challenges, but certainly interesting. Do
you think too many entrepreneurs fail because they look at that kind of scenario and they end up growing at no expense? They're not public. They maybe have small VC backing, but they're completely focused on purely growth versus profit. Like I've listened in on so many pitches and sat in on a lot of pitches, and it's like, we're doing $0 in sales. We're trying to raise $1.5-2 million, and there's really no proof of concept here. And before, a lot of people are getting away with that, but now it's just like, a lot of people are.
I think that the ability to start a company today is much easier than it was 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, coding was more. You need a good idea now. Like the cost to actually get something out into the market is so much less expensive now than it used to be. I remember, when my first company was in mobile back in the 90s, we had to write everything. It was like assembly line. Like we literally wrote every line of code. There were no tools and kits and all this other stuff. So, it's certainly gotten much, much easier. Hosting services, these are all things now that made life a lot easier. So it's much easier to get something out into the market now. So I think that initial, hey, I need $250,000 to launch something is now go do it yourself. You don't really need that. So I think there are incubators now, there are a lot of people now surrounding the whole, let's get the next crop of companies built. The good news is that in a recession, it's always when these companies are actually, so many of these companies got founded during bad times. Right. Airbnb, Uber, they all tapped into the whole, gig economy. I want to, eBay tapped into early on. That was hey, even my stuff has value, right? So you think about the evolution of those things. Shopify tapping into everyone wants to have a store online, right? Before Shopify, and again, the Shopify and folks like them, big commerce, et cetera, building a store was you had to hire a guy to go build your e-store. It was a huge, big ordeal. Now you go to Shopify, you set up your own store.
Barrier to entry is almost nil, which is a benefit, in a way. And it's also, a lot of noise, creates a whole lot of different noise.
Well, I think what it defines is the need for custom tech,
right,
is slowly eroding. I heard a great podcast yesterday talking about AI illustrations. Right. So I can actually say there's an AI. I didn't see a demo of it. Like, all right, take a picture of Connor Dube, right? And now give him yellow hair, make him a cartoon, and put a horn on top of his head, put a horns coming out of his ears and have him say, the train is coming. Like there's AI that could do that now.
Yeah.
So, what's that going to do to the illustration? There's another documentary on farming. Your average large farm had 200 farm hands. Now it's 30 because of automation. So there's all these things that are actually happening in the market, and it's there's an evolution going on.
Two quick things before I want to wind down here. But number one, do you foresee there's talk one of the bigger possible economic crashes that we may have in a while? Maybe they're talking 2008 status, maybe in a greater way, different. Do you believe in that? If you do, are you at the person who's kind of worked to really hard build wealth over their life? Are you excited for that? Is there more opportunity because of that? We've been so hot in the market, the tried and true companies stand through during those times. So
yeah. So the only thing that's holding the bright spot of the recession, I don't know if that you can call it, is the job market, right? The job market is still very tight. There's still a lot of jobs open for anyone who's unemployed. It's easier to find a job than it used to be. It's easier to apply to a job than it used to be. Salaries are up, though probably not as much as they used to be. So as long as that's standing true, then the real problem of a recession of thousands and thousands of people getting laid off just isn't happening yet. Ford announced 2,000 people getting laid off, and it was like a big media thing. I'm like, I'm old enough that when Ford has a layoff, it's 20,000 people, right? 2,000. Again, I feel terrible for the 2,000 people. That's not the numbers that get me like all freaked out. Right. I think the tech layoffs, I saw a thing on layoffs.fyi. I think the ones they're reporting have been 90, let's call it 100,000 so far this year. That's a lot, but it's not a crazy number because of the open jobs and the talent. So I think there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world of talent. I think the gigification of talent is actually very interesting. I think the movement away from these long-term jobs that our grandparents had. Oh, I got a watch for working at a company for 25 years. I think those are slowly going away and being replaced by, hey, here's my next experience. Here's my next experience. Here's my next experience. The resume was invented by Leonardo da Vinci, and other than putting your mobile number and an email and changing the font, it probably hasn't changed that much since then. But it was designed to be one-page summary of you, right?
Mm.
Does that really make sense anymore? you're so much more than your one page. Here's the 5 jobs I've had, in 30 years. And if you're going to see people switching jobs every 2 to 3 years, you're going to have a lot more experiences, which are, it's not a bad thing. It's really, really not a bad thing. I think finally, the other thing that's really interesting is that, and I'm jealous, is that the prioritization now of work-life balance over compensation is really surprising for me, right? I come from a world where money solves all problems. There's no problem that money can't solve, like all the things, right? All those expressions. And you're seeing now employees say, I'll take less pay, but I want a better quality of life.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I'm totally jealous of it. Totally jealous. My 3 kids, when they were born, I took off, the day that they were born. Right. And now you're seeing, husbands and wives taking off, weeks at a time. And like, I'm jealous of it. I think it's amazing. I think, I'm really, really jealous of it. To me, a BlackBerry, when I got one, allowed me to now, do email anywhere I want, right? It wasn't oh, good, now I could just be disconnected. It was another way to be connected. So I think these things are all creating opportunities, yet this looming recession and, it's supply chain problems and all these things that are happening, really are going to create a little bit of chaos, certainly for the next 2 quarters.
I don't think you can have the best of both worlds, which is why I'm excited. Like, yes, I want work-life balance and all that good stuff. But, once economic downtimes hit, I mean, those of us who have been putting our nose to the grindstone, so to say, and hitting it hard, I mean, we're going to come out on top and other people are really going to struggle. So I kind of fear for my generation in that kind of thinking. And yes, it works for some, but I think, it's going to create a lot of opportunities for others who are willing to work 80, 100 hours a week and keep after it. So Evan, I can't thank you enough, my friend. Anything else top of mind in 20 seconds you want to hit on before we wrap up? And then, yeah.
No, we have, for the audience that are out there looking for work, good luck. You can go to jobs.recruiter.com. We have a bunch of different job boards that we run to help you out if you're actively looking. The 70% of all jobs are found through a personal connection, which include, a recruiter. So if you think that just applying on Indeed is going to get you a job, that's 30% of the time. So it's important to ensure that you're talking to somebody about it. The last is, recruiting is a human interaction. AI, bots, schmots, no one's walking into your business without actually speaking to somebody. You're not, whether you're the dishwasher, the waiter, the product manager, the Java developer, you're going to talk to somebody before walking into that building. And so as more and more people are moving around and getting hired, you're going to need a recruiter. And that's what we do on an on-demand basis. So thanks so much, really, Connor, for having me. Really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine, man. And best way for people to find you, follow you, get in contact with you?
Evan@recruiter.com.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Make sure you share this, subscribe. Evan, you're awesome. Look forward to seeing all the great things you got coming out here in the future and continuously studying your career. And with that, much love to you, my friends. Make it great, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.